Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm here with Joe Corallo. How are you doing?
I'm all right, Perch. How are you?
I'm doing great. We have a very special guest today. We're talking with Sean Gordon Murphy. Sean, how are you?
Good, man. It's good to finally meet Joe, but apparently I met him years ago at a signing in New York.
Yeah, Midtown Comics for The Wake.
Nice.
Yeah,
I appreciate
And
that.
no problem.
in this signing, you got a sketch, I think, Joe.
Yeah, I did get there's a Batman sketch in there. There was one of the vampire things. There's a lot of vampires in American Vampire.
When you showed me the book, I immediately remembered this because usually I'll just do one free quick sketch per person.
Yeah.
But if I did a Batman in there too, I'm guessing Scott was probably off doing something else. And I was like, well, I might as well just keep drawing until he comes back.
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
He was on the phone because he had to call his kids because it was getting late.
Yeah.
To wish him a good night. And yeah, that's what happened.
That's cool. That's a nice dad and nice Sean for just keeping going with the drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't a dick or anything. People in the line were good. No one walked
They
away.
they seem to be. I mean, there's always weird people on these lines, but then seem fine.
Yeah.
Well, there's a pro tip here. Then, if you're at a signing and you're getting something drawn with Scott and somebody else, get your partner to distract Scott by talking about his kids while the artist draws then a bunch of stuff for you. This is
yeah. It's actually this worked out really well for me once at a JHU signing because Paul Pope was like 2 hours late. And Mike Cavallero and Dean Haspiel were hanging out. So I got a really nice Mr. Sensitive from Ecstatic sketch.
Yeah.
It was
Nice.
really nice sketch. And and then I got a Cruder dupe sketch from Paul.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, 2 hours late. That sounds about true to form to Paul, who's a friend of mine.
Yeah, no, I love Paul's stuff. I own a lot of his work because it's really great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing. His pages are massive too. As an original art collector, they're almost too big sometimes where I feel like people don't know how to display them properly, or shipping them is different, of course.
Yeah. Howard Cruz, he was a friend of mine, before he passed away a year and a half ago now. It's crazy. But I have some original art from him. And those are like the massive pages. They're definitely much bigger than 11 by 17.
Yeah. And we're here today to talk about original art, which
exactly
leads us right into this. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as an artist, obviously, original art and commissions and all that is a huge part of your life. I mean, it's part of the business. But a lot of people seem confused about it. Like, how do they get it? What do they do? But there's interest, but there's a lot of confusion. It's not a well described thing.
Yeah. It's funny. And I know people don't like to talk about numbers, but I make about 2/3 of my yearly income off of original art. Or going to conventions for appearance fees and selling prints of original art or whatever it is. So there's sort of like these side hustles that you have the benefit. Like Batman pays well, the royalties are great, of course, but Batman also gives you a higher profile where you can sell these originals for more, these covers, charge more for commissions, whatever. If I wasn't on Batman, I probably wouldn't be getting these invites to shows as much, blah blah blah. So there's like the side bonus of doing high profile figures like that.
Right. It's a nice ecosystem that works out where you work very hard in your career. You get to a book, you get to a certain place, and of course, it opens up other doors.
Yeah. It's funny because you guys both collect. I mean, Joe just mentioned his, but Perch, on your desk, you've got some originals that you've mentioned from time to time.
Yeah, quite a bit, and in the house too. I've got a lot of Art Adams. I've got a lot of. I've got something from you, which is very nice. I've got quite a bit from a lot of people. So
nice.
Yeah. I think this for me, it started. I think with most artists, selling your originals isn't something that you necessarily plan on. It's just you get an email now and then, and the guy's like, "Oh, that Star Trek page. Any interest in selling that?" And I think for the first 5 to 8 years of my career, I just saw it as bonus money. I didn't have a website for it. I wasn't pushing it. I didn't have a plan for selling it and how to price it and how to increase those prices or whatever. And it wasn't until the last 5 years where I started to really hone in on, all right, this is like a whole other serious business on the side. If I run this correctly, then I can, double my take each year. So I got really interested in trying to maximize it. Which sounds kind of cold to some people, but really, like, I want my customers to be happy. I want people to buy low and sell a little higher. I want my buyers to make money. I don't want to gut anybody. And that's the key word, I think, is no one wants to feel like they got gutted when they buy something.
Yeah.
They want to feel happy with their purchase. And I think there's a lot of things that art dealers do that sour the process, or artists maybe do themselves, or yeah, I'm not sure which part of it you want to get into first, Perch.
Well, yeah, let's talk about. I mean, what are some of these sour experiences? Because I like I mentioned, whenever we talk about this topic on the channel, or I bring it up, or somebody else does, what I notice most of all is people. It's a completely foreign world to them. There's no place for them to really understand. It's like, do I have to go to a convention to do this? How much should I pay? I've heard some bad stories about cheating, and what are some of the bad experiences people do have? Like, let's talk about that.
Well, some customers want to deal with the talent. Like, they like to just talk to artists. Like my art dealer, Jeff, he's a close friend too, and sort of a manager. He loves talking to artists and getting Hellboy commissions. Part of the experience for him is that connection and getting a bit of a bargain, but he loves to pay them more than what they were charging as well, which is nice. So, but I think a lot of people, when they buy, they get annoyed if you have an art dealer in the way. The art dealer is rude, which a lot of these art dealers are, or the art dealer is taking a cut, which that customer doesn't think he should get. Like, if I'm trying to buy something from Sean, why am I giving it to this guy who's going to take a cut? Can I just give it directly to the artist or whatever, which is fair. And the other thing too is a lot of people that get into being an art dealer, they don't have special training for this. A lot of them, it feels like they loved comics. They didn't really have much of a direction in their career. They normally started helping an artist just as a friend. Like, they'll like, oh, I help a few of my buddies out, but then they get this idea to turn into a business, and then it sort of takes off. But I wouldn't say that they're planners or good at marketing or good with sales or people skills. They're sort of hangers on. And I don't mean to shit all over these people, but
no, hangers on can be an issue.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've let go of art dealers because I didn't like the way they were treating my customers. Like, if they were rude, I would say, like, why are you rude to that guy? He's like, well, he's trying to get it for a cheaper price. He's trying to fuck me over. And I go, he's not trying to fuck you over. He's trying to fuck me over. And I wouldn't even word it that way. I think he's just haggling, and that's okay. And he waited like 2 hours in line. I mean, like, give the guy a break. His kids are running around. Like, let's just try to put yourself in his head. Sure. But there's a real lack of empathy for a lot of art dealers. And if you listen to some of their podcasts, you can kind of see, like, I don't know, they just gouge people very naturally, and they feel like they have to, because if they don't, then they're just going to get fucked, and they have to be mean in order to protect their talent. But I don't think that's true at all. With Jeff, I say everyone walks away from the table happy. If they spend no money, if they spend a lot of money, like, if they're really upset and they want a refund, we'll give them a refund. Like, we're not here to argue. We have a policy where everyone walks away happy. And we've never had a serious problem with that. We've done a lot of shows internationally, and it's just mostly, the how to win friends and influence people approach generally works, So that's a long answer to your question.
I think, no, it's good. Do you think, so here's two words that kind of come to mind. I think people assume that buying art is either going to be like kind of a, flea market with a lot of haggling, or like an auction. And it's really neither of those. I mean, is it? But I mean, how would you describe kind of that process?
Yeah, well, it can be any of that. I mean, so if you're going to buy art, you're either tracking down the artist on social media and asking them about pages, which works, or you're going to a booth at a convention where there's a bunch of black books filled with original art from the 70s and 80s, and they're all labeled, and they're kind of scattered in a pile. You just dig through and you buy what you want. Or sometimes you have a really good relationship with the creator, and you can get the inside scoop on Batman pages that are coming out. And maybe if you buy a lot from this person, he'll give you a peek at the next issue, things like that. So it really is a relationship business. And it also depends on your price point too. I mean, if you're rolling in to buy covers, then, obviously you've got a lot of money to spend, and the doors will open for you differently than if you're just starting to buy for the first time. And if you're just starting to get into original art, then I'd say starting with commissions and head sketches at shows might be a good way.
It seems like that's a better entry. I know a lot of people have been soured by this idea of, well, I think they have in their head, like, I'd like to buy some original art that was printed in a comic somewhere. I really have no sense of the value of this.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to get sticker shock, and then I'm not going to understand the process. And then I'm going to get kind of discouraged and just want out.
Right. Yeah. And you've got different customers too. Like, I know when customers buy something just because they love it, they don't care. They're not there to flip it. They're just there because they want it. And they're not high volume buyers. They're heartful buyers, which is beautiful. And then you've got people that do want to invest and they want to flip immediately. And those guys tend to, dicker with you a lot more. Then you have people that want to buy and invest, but they don't plan on selling it right away. They want to keep it for 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Which is great for me because it removes that art from the market, which it makes it more scarce, which is helpful.
Yeah.
I'm curious and Joe, I mean, for me, I'm not a flipper of art. I treat it like an investment, and that I'll be very careful with everything, but I have no intention of selling it. I've given them away as free gifts. But how about you?
I've given some art away as gifts, but I keep it for myself. That I want it. That's why I purchased it. But it's interesting because what was it? A good friend of mine, Martha Thomas's, also collects art, and like she's owns like original Frank Miller covers. She's the real deal. But she will have advice like, you gotta, if you're looking, especially if you're looking to like invest in this, get contemporary art. A lot of people think like, oh, I should like throw that money down to like get like an original Sandman page or something. Like, let me save up like the 10 grand or something, or get an original John Byrne X-Men page. And it's like, that's a lot harder to guarantee that you're going to be able to flip that for the amount you paid. Like, get your contemporaries now, because like you were saying, in 10 years, those prices go up. But you need to, like, invest in what's happening now, and also get stuff you like. Don't get it because, like, I think this is going to be value. It's like, get stuff like, I always get pages from comics I personally enjoy, commissions from artists I like, because a lot of those old pages, those artists were screwed out of those pages. Like, no joke. Some of these people sold those pages, like, we're talking $30.
Yeah.
And now these people bought them all up 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and now they're charging $1,000 for these things.
Yeah. I have a friend who's a big, he's been around a long time, and he did this Punisher cover that you guys would both know. It's a classic Punisher cover. And I have another friend who was one of my big buyers, and he sold a bunch of stuff in order to acquire this Punisher cover. And I was like, oh, it's so funny. Like, I know the artist really well. He's a friend of mine. So I texted the artist. I was like, hey, remember this cover? My friend's going to buy it. Do you know what you sold it for? And I knew this was going to be painful, but I had to know. And he goes, yeah, I think I sold that in the late 80s for like $100 or whatever. And he goes, why? What's your friend buying it for? And I go, 70. He's like, $70. I'm like, $70,000. And he writes back 10 minutes later. He goes, I'm currently unemployed in comics right now.
Yeah.
And I called him immediately to make sure he wasn't going to throw himself off the balcony. He was like, half kidding, but half serious. And I felt bad for them because this friend is like a legendary creator who often feels unappreciated these days. Yeah. And while his classic stuff, I mean, if he did a new cover of the Punisher, it wouldn't go for 70, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to know how to do the math on that. Like,
might go for 2.
No, it's I got some art from Paul Ryan back in I think the very start of the 90s, and I remember paying nothing for it. I mean, it was I think some of that stuff was under $100 and way under $100.
No, Martha bought that last page of Grant Morrison and Richard Case's Doom Patrol. Richard was charging $30 for it.
Yeah,
she gave him $100. You could, if she wanted to flip that or take it to an auction house, like, I think you'd probably get $5,000, no problem.
Yeah. I heard Guy Davis was selling art by the inch once, Yeah, he's so fast. He could do 3 pages a day or something, but he would sell it by the inch, meaning if you held up a ruler and you want to buy a stack, he would just charge like that. To me is insane. I mean, even if,
Wow.
yeah, it's so strange. I mean, up to 10 years ago, I bought a Rick Leonardi Spider-Man 299 page for $40. No, this might have been like 2000, so maybe 15 years ago. And now his stuff's going for at least 600. And I'm not flipping it because I love it, but I have another friend who knew Mike Mignola back in the day and bought a Hellboy cover for $500, and he just sold it for 30. And he actually called Mike and said, "I'm going to send you a check." Mike's like, "No, don't worry about it. You got a good deal at the time." And my friend's like, no, right's right. Come on. Like, I feel bad taking all this money when I only paid you this much. Like, I'm going to send you a check. Just take it. And yeah, that was nice of him, but that rarely happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the prices, I think in particular, the past 15, 20 years have really skyrocketed. Like, there's really a lot more people interested in the original art.
Yeah, I honestly can't really explain why. I have some ideas, but you guys are Perch, you're more into economics than I am. Can you explain why it's spiked in the past 10 years?
I think the collector market in general, not comics, but this idea of owning something original kind of landed in people's minds. And it happened with movies. It happened with craft. It happened with a lot of things. I mean, even this is going to sound like a really ridiculous connection, but bear with me. Stuff like Etsy, which prides itself on like, you can own an original piece of work. It went around the consciousness of consumers to say original work is valuable and it's something I want. So the demand just doubled. I mean, you could buy original art, like I said, in the early 90s. I mean, actually through the 90s. And unless you were talking about Jim Lee or Mark Silvestri or somebody or Todd, you could pick up art really cheap, including these, you could get it very, very inexpensively. But there wasn't any demand. Like I was running a shop and very rarely would somebody come in and ask for this. And then in 2019, I'm running a shop and it's, I would say, I don't know. I don't know the exact numbers, but not a single day would go by where somebody didn't come in asking for how to get hooked up with art.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Etsy phenomenon or even eBay before that. But Etsy does specialize in like vintage, one-of-a-kind items. And it's set up in a nicer way too.
Now, while you're talking about this at the shop, how often would someone come in and say, "I got this polybag Death of Superman"? How much?
So it's interesting because it's not. It would be almost inverse. I mean, man, when the Death of Superman hit, I remember 6 months later after that comic came out, people wanted to flip it, for like $1,000, and we're upset, especially in the late 90s, why it wasn't worth college money, but. It's like as things like that, as the Death of Superman issues decreased, the art requests increased. So it's almost a separating line there. But yeah, no, it's definitely on people's minds now, and I think this idea of I could have something nobody else could have is a big deal.
Yeah. So the increase of everything going digital, knowing that so much art is digital now, that probably all plays a factor too, because there's this idea of scarcity to it.
I hope so. And, I'm not sure if my ability to sell original art in the future is secure or not. And Perch said recently that he thinks that it absolutely is going to go up in value because of scarcity. I mean, I don't know how many artists are digital now, 50% or more.
Easily. Yeah.
But then I worry if there's less of it out there, I can see why it's more scarce. But if customers don't know that it's available to purchase, will they value a piece of paper with ink on it, or would they rather have an NFT in the future? Like, what do Generation Zs or whatever want?
It's tough. I think it's happening at the wrong moment, this move to digital, because I think more and more, like we've been talking about, I think people want original art. They want something unique to them. NFTs maybe in the future. I think it remains to be seen where that all rolls out. But this idea, which is really strong with millennials and Gen Z, if I can have a piece of art nobody else can have, and I can frame it, and it's a cool thing. That demand is growing while simultaneously the art being produced is shrinking.
Yeah,
and they will drive demand. But there's a tipping point. If this goes too much further, the interest is going to cap and start to decrease because there's just not enough product out there, or it's going to price people out of the market. Like like a company that stock goes up way too high and then you just can't even get in.
Right. Yeah.
There's also a lot of artists that do like a hybrid sort of digital. There are certain artists that sell their pencils, but they ink digitally.
Yeah.
I hate that. Sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You can always tell.
No, you're fine. And then there's the inverse of that, where there are people who print out their digital line work and then hand ink over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's I have one friend who said, because he did blue line, he'd print out his pencils into blue line, like non-photo stab blue, and he would ink over it. And you don't need to erase anything. If you try to erase the ink in the paper, it's not going anywhere. So you always have this ghostly blue image behind the inks.
Yeah.
And I said, doesn't that bother your buyers? He's like, no, they don't care at all. And I call bullshit on that, because I have French buyers who, like, if there's a drip of coffee on the page, they're not interested anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because he was 100% printing out his pencils and inking. He didn't know any different, because his scheme seemed to be working in his mind. But I guarantee you, if he actually penciled for real on a page and then inked it for real and erased it and sold it, that would be worth more, because his hands were all over it through the whole process. One time I traded art with a guy. I gave him a really great Hellblazer piece that I really didn't want to let go of. He gave me an Avengers piece that had he's a Filipino artist who's really good. I'll think of it later. Lionel Yu. It was a Lionel Yu page.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And as I sat down, my friend's like, this isn't, Lionel Yu didn't actually touch this page, And I go, what? He goes, yeah, he printed out the blue line, he inked over it. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, that motherfucker. Like, I gave him a page that I penciled in, inked and erased, and he gave me, like, this is half the art. So Lionel Yu's out there with some other page, the original pencils probably, and selling that. And I just felt, I haven't spoken to that inker ever since.
Yeah.
I do think there's going to be a lot of those scenarios where people are going to get wise. And I think, to the earlier comment, I think that's going to drive a lot of irritation in the market. These are the kinds of small things that stick in buyers' minds and turns them off, even dealing with the future.
There's also, there are people who will hand draw just the pages they know will sell.
Yeah.
And then do digital for the rest. And then there are also people who will only sell the entire issue.
Selling issue complete is that's when usually someone, if you're like a Daniel Warren Johnson or a Trad Moore, those guys tend to do it. But that's actually their art dealer who's pushing that stuff. My only thing with that is, when you can so easily sell an issue for 20 grand, didn't you underprice it? Like, didn't you go for the fast dollar rather than piecing it out and selling it slowly? Like, I think those artists are actually losing money when they sell in bulk like that.
Yeah, because they're not, some of it is like, maybe they could have gotten 25,000. They might have been stuck with a couple of uninteresting pages, but they could have gotten more individually for the really good ones. That could have gotten them more.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. I get I different kinds of buyers are interested in different things. Like, everyone wants a splashy Batman page. But I've got people that come out of the woodwork to buy any page that has a whale on it, like a picture of a giant fish. Anything with the ocean, they're into that. Another guy would buy anything with polar bears. He bought all my Punk Rock Jesus pages that had a polar bear on it, and I finally was like, are you like a furry on the side? He goes, no, I'm not allowed to buy art unless it's from my kids' nursery. So I can buy, I figure polar bears is appropriate for little kids. And I go, have you read the rest of the book? And like anything, cars, any page I draw with cars in it, because I'm like the car guy in comics, those usually sell pretty quick. But it's interesting, some of the little ticks that customers have that they just like, and they're not always the most expensive pages. Sometimes they just love backgrounds and oceanscapes or whatever.
Yeah, but no joke though with the furry commissions. I know there are a lot of artists that won't admit it, but they do a lot of furry commissions because I don't know what they're all doing, but they got money to burn.
No, it's true. My brother-in-law is a furry, and so I have nothing but respect for whatever grown adults want to do on the side. I do know a lot about the furry world, but I didn't know about it in college. And there was a student there who was literally paying his way through SCAD, which is like $30K a year at the time. Drawing pictures of lions fucking each other.
Yeah.
And he had like long, like dusty blonde hair. Like you could tell he kind of was trying to look like a lion. Super nice guy. Like I'm really not judging him. Like it is kind of funny, but hey, joke's on us. We weren't paying our way through college by doing commissions, you know. So he's laughing now.
Yeah, I know that there's an artist. I won't say who that's to this day makes a lot of money off drawing feet, and everybody knows what it's for. And it's not Rob Liefeld, no, but there's like they're getting major commissions off of.
Wow, I didn't know that Quentin Tarantino bought art like that.
There you go.
Out of all the artists working right now, whose art do you think gets masturbated over the most?
Wow, what a question. So many choices.
Skip right over Adam Hughes because we know he's the winner.
Yeah. I mean, Jason Campbell's got to be up there.
Absolutely. Frank Cho.
Yeah, Cho. Maybe Adams, but it's too expensive. I think Campbell has a lot of prints out there. So, I mean, I think you can get into that masturbation cheap.
I love Todd. He's a friend of mine. I love chatting with him because he knows what he is. He knows what he's doing. He's got this pipeline of doing these variant covers. Like he draws covers at a loss for Marvel. The real money for him is selling prints and doing these variants and all the stuff that he does. For him, I think you can invite him to the show. You have to pay more to get him at the show. If you want the J. Scott Campbell road crew, they're cheaper. He will send out a team of people to sell the variants, and there's probably some other deal that they make with the show. But good for him. Like no one else thought of that.
No, that's the thing that I know is here in Seattle, the road crew has shown up a lot. And it's always it's funny to watch people like, which one's J. Scott Campbell? Like, none of them.
The Clayman's probably getting up there. I saw that first Batcat cover.
Yeah,
that's up there. Unfortunately, part of me is like, oh God, what if the answer is Scotty Young?
Ooh.
What if that's the dark truth in this world?
Yeah. Why did you do that?
That's some profiler Mindhunter shit right there. You see, so funny story. There was a movie once with Richard Gere in it, and he is arresting a pedophile. And on the shelf, the pedophile has a copy of my book, Off-Road, which I did back in 2002. And he picks up the book and looks at it. And the intent is, or the accusation, I guess, is that this guy's a pedophile because he's reading comics that feature like 4 20-year-old boys or whatever. And I called Oni and I was like, did you know that this movie, like, do you have a lawsuit here? I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of fishy, and nothing ever happened. No one ever saw the movie anyway. So
that's terrible to be. You don't want to be linked with that. Why did you say Scotty Young? Why would you do that? No, I mean, come on, Dynamite Crew. You can come in here and take this award. But
I mean, they've certainly got they got something going, or whoever does Zombie Tramp. How that book is just will not end.
Yeah. No, that's just true.
That is Action Labs like golden goose. That is
more copies from Spawn very soon. How if somebody wants something personally done that's a commission? Now I have 2 questions. So number 1, how do they initiate that? Like, I know this question comes up a lot. Like, I want something from Sean. How do I even? I go to Twitter, but there's no Sean. How do I get? How do I get Sean?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I have a website still. Anybody can contact me through my website. It hasn't been updated in 10 years, but that's actually the way I like it. It cuts down on traffic.
Sure.
I retired from commissions like 5 years ago. I will maybe take one a year because I just don't have a lot of time. So when I do charge, you can imagine it's for quite a lot. But generally, I just don't take them. But yeah, if you're just trying to commissions, you just try to track down the artist through Instagram, social media, whatever, and they will get back to you, or they won't, or hopefully they'll have an art dealer and a website. Like I know I used to be with Essential Sequential, Jason Schachter and that whole crew. These are friends of mine. Like you can buy Mateo's art. It's a great website, very clickable, and Jason's very responsive and all that. But yeah, some artists are just, we talk a lot about how artists aren't wired for business. And you're going to see that when it comes to trying to track them down for art, for sure.
Yeah, it's a sluggish process. I know I've tried to help people out by connecting them, and it sometimes feels like on one hand, it's a bit of a quest, and that can be exciting, but then 3 months later, that quest gets old.
Yeah, I know the guy who wanted to buy that Punisher cover. He worked for 4 years to track down the cover, find out who owned it, what he wanted for it. He had like he hired another friend to just work on this part-time, just figure out who this guy is, and he'll sell me this Punisher cover. And the owner of the art eventually did come around, and after 4 years, he agreed to sell him the entire issue for $108,000 because he had the whole thing.
Wow.
My friend bought it for that. I forget what the price was actually, but he only wants the cover, so he's going to piece out the rest of it basically, which is going to take him a while. But you know, this is the first comic he ever read, and he loves the Punisher, and he's got the money to do it. And sure, you know, some people like Ferraris, some people like comic book art.
Yeah.
I have another friend who he reps like 60 artists, and he does it almost for free because he's just trying to be helpful. And anytime somebody asks for a commission of something weird, like some nudity or some foot thing or whatever, triple the price. And he always gets it because people who want that know that it's a little bit oddball and they're willing to pay for it. Now the artists, he'll tell the artist, draw this. So this one guy wanted a commission of the Hulk and the Thing in a locker room, and the Thing has wrapped up a towel and is whipping the Hulk in the butt. But the Thing, his whole body is stone, but his penis is flesh. And this is what that guy wants for commissions. So my friend goes, all right, it's going to cost triple the price. The guy's like, no problem. Like, didn't even bat an eye. And so my friend goes to this artist. He's like, here's, you know, what you should draw. And my friend's like, I don't want to draw it. He goes, this guy's paying triple your price. Just don't sign it. And that was the solution. And the artist drew it, didn't sign it. The commissioner didn't care that it wasn't signed. And apparently this is his thing.
But like,
so many problems with
no pun intended.
Are there ever weird ones that like aren't like sexual? Like it's just like, I just want Aunt May eating Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, there's a guy with a commission book that wants food stuff, like anything with food. And it's not a fetish. He just has so many books of commissions. He just wanted to try to throw people a curveball.
Sure.
So there's like girls eating apples and bananas and just whatever. Another guy wants
glory
artists.
time in the industry right now for that. So there's
so
much content.
Exactly. Another guy wants artists to do self portraits, but he wants them to draw themselves as a science fiction character. So one guy drew his face onto R2-D2, and you get some pretty creative things happening. For when I always got those, I'd be like, just tell me Batman or Spider-Man. Like, don't make me think. Please just give me something easy. Like, I'm not going to be like, ooh, I was having kind of a weird day, but you came up to me and you gave me this curveball, man. I'm so glad that you're here to make me really work my ass off and like do something creative that's going to stand the test of time. Like, I am not that artist.
People have to be empathetic a little bit. Like I watch at conventions. And I think it was Nick Dragotta at once. I'm getting something. I get a quick sketch from him, and he's signing something for me.
Yeah.
And the person behind me is like, well, I'm going to get him to draw, a view of Seattle from the pier, and on that pier is myself, and I'm hanging out with every member of the Teen Titans.
What
and
the
then
hell?
we're fighting some kind of kaiju monster. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, he's not going to do that for you. But yeah, I don't know. No artist wants to hear that. And I mean, not only is it annoying, but also like it's not the most fun environment to sit in a convention all day.
No.
No, I got Mike Norton once to draw Gambit, but it's Peter David as Gambit.
Oh no.
Okay.
And I got him to do that, and then I had Peter David sign it.
Okay,
that was fun.
That's funny. But the pants were all on in yours, right?
Yeah, no, this was just just Peter David as Gambit.
Okay,
right.
But and then another fun one. What was it? Dave Gibbons was doing a signing. And I brought my Absolute Watchman with me. I mean, a lot of people did. What else are you gonna? It's Dave Gibbons. You're gonna lug your Absolute Watchman out there. And then he's like, everyone's asking for like a Rorschach sketch because everyone's an unimaginative idiot. So so it's like, oh, I'm gonna go Rorschach. So I was just like, he's like, oh, who do you want me to sketch in the book? And I was like, oh, could you do, Ozymandias? And he just goes, oh, the pretty one. And then I said, oh no, it's if you don't want to draw it, and like without missing a beat in that like really dry British wit, he was just like, no, you already told me to draw Ozymandias, so that's what you're getting.
Nice.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you miss it at all? Like I understand why I would retire from it too very quickly, but is it? I would get out of that game as fast as I possibly could.
Yeah, I'm not good at multitasking. Sitting at a show and drawing with my head down while people are talking to me is something that I'm not good at. My stuff, so my pencils are so loose that I need to be focusing on what I'm doing like 110%. So I'm already compromised being at a show. What I would do towards the end of when I was taking commissions was just take them back to my hotel room and do it before I got drunk. And I could guarantee a better product, and I was in a quiet space with my music on and whatever. Plus, I usually like to be at a show standing because I felt bad that my customers were on their feet and I was sitting down. And I tried to, I've since given that up. I've decided to sit.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, part of me was like, I didn't get to draw anything cool. Like I rarely got like Blade Runner or Aliens or, Zorro.
Yeah.
I would just get like Wolverine, Batman, Wolverine, or Deadpool, whatever. So I wish people came up with some interesting things. Like I've debated putting out a commission request and saying, here's 100 things I want to draw. And I would put in like, Pirates of Dark Water and Biker Mice from Mars, and just really limit. Yeah. And if you want commissions, these are the 100 things I'm willing to draw for you, but you have to pick from this list and see what happens.
I had so many Biker Mice from Mars figures as a kid. I had this. Yeah,
I think people might like that. Actually, it's funny. I bet because I do watch a lot of customers come up and they don't know exactly what they want, so they go either super overcomplicated and they're like, Deadpool, just give me Deadpool, and then So that could actually help. But
Blade Runner. I'm a huge Blade Runner fan. So I need more.
No crazy stories. Then nobody came up to you say, I want Mr. Fantastic, but with a pineapple down there or something like.
No, as my career started exploding, I started doing less commissions, and one of the things that made commissions so expensive is probably my fault. Is back in 10 years ago, I said to my art dealer, like, I don't want to do any more commissions. He goes, well, why don't we just charge a lot so you'll cut down on your list? And I go, fine. I want $1,000. And I'm like, that's like triple what I was getting. And I wasn't trying to gouge people. I just did not want to draw commissions. I'd rather just draw pages and get royalties and blah, blah, blah. So when everyone saw, Sean just crossed $1,000 for commissions, like everyone started raising their prices too. And
thanks.
People who sorry.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
It went from Sean's being greedy to let's all be greedy too. That
amazing
hypocrisy. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, okay. So you're responsible. I got it.
I didn't mean to.
I lucked out, and I did get a sketch from Fiona Staples right as like Saga was blowing up before she closed everything down. I had to finagle though because I was on the list. This was, I guess, New York Comic Con 2012. I want to say. Yeah. And the art, like she didn't have time to do it at the convention or whatever. She was backed up, and the dealer was at the table and was just like, she's not going to have any time. I'm going to close this down, and we'll refund you. Don't worry about it. And so I was at the image party later anyway, and I just went up to I just talked to Fiona, and I was just like, hey, I'm on your list, and like the guy was saying I was going to do that, and she was like, oh no, don't worry about it. I'll mail it to you. We won't have to refund you, because I knew this was going to end. So I'm like, let me get this now because there's no more of this. Yeah,
she's one of my closest friends in comics. Like I love her to death. But I remember sitting with her in North or South Carolina, and we were each doing sketches. She had two lines. One was for people that had prepaid, and one was for people that had just shown up or whatever. And we were doing this all for free or for cheap at the time. And at the show, people there didn't know who me and Fiona were. They just were like, cool, comic book artist. I'm drawing the Flash and like characters that I'd never get requested. And she's doing it too. I remember looking over and seeing her line, and like some of the people there were obviously for Saga, but I could tell there's about a year of this left, and then we're never going to see Fiona Staples commissions ever again.
Oh yeah, no, I had her draw Dr. Phosphorus too.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right. To tracking her down at a party when she's socializing, that's a bold move, man. I can't say I would have responded so positively.
Well, I had already interacted via email and stuff to arrange the sketch, right. So it wasn't like cold. Yeah. It was like,
We're learning a lot of things here today. Yeah,
was this that stalker?
Somebody wanted a thing with a penis. I got it.
Was this that image party in Manhattan where it was in like some huge arcade and it was just chaos?
This was before that. I remember that party, and that was a mess. This was, I want to say, this was maybe a year before that, because Kieran Gillen was there in like a Cyclops t-shirt with like a sports jacket on. Like, so I think he was writing Uncanny at the time. So it was around then.
Right.
You know, I don't know why that's the detail from that party that I'm like, oh yeah, when he was in the Cyclops t-shirt and the sports jacket.
It's so weird to me when there's at the end of a show, people are like, what's going on tonight? Like, no one actually plans ahead. They're like, what are you doing for dinner? Was there a party? And we all hear about some party by Image, for example. And it starts with, you're going to need, it's invite only. So you can only bring one friend. And then you get there and it's like, everyone can get in, including people who have nothing to do with comics, you know?
Yeah.
It's just chaos. So I never know what those events are going to be like. I don't think Image does those anymore. Oh, not under COVID.
I don't think they do. Everyone just kind of, I don't know. It's a pissing contest on who's cooler.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is like, oh, well, if you heard of the party, it can't be that cool. You have to go to the party that no one else knows about. And it's like,
so
who
I'm curious.
cares?
I want to know what you guys think about that, because I feel that too. When I walk into a bar after a show, I'm like, I feel eyes on me, and they're like, oh, he's got Batman. He's overpaid. He said something on Twitter. Like, I can just feel that. And I just want to get my drink. And I should have just gone to a bar where there aren't going to be any pros. You guys feel that too? When you go in, you can feel like the ego, the chess game of egos that's happening?
Yeah, everyone is either Shooter McGavin or the guy that wants to go to Red Lobster with him.
Oh, no.
That's going to the bar with comic pros at these things.
It's an interesting environment. I mean, like the Hyatt at San Diego Comic-Con, I think that's the bar. Now they built it in Marriott. They have the convention center. I think you got the Marriott and then the Hyatt. And it seems like the Hyatt bar is where a lot of people wound up. And then you had a collection of people who would go to Old Town that would drive up there. That was always kind of the sketchy one because you kind of worried who would be able to get back. So that's where I always felt like, in the back of my head, I'm thinking I'm going to have to get all these guys home somehow. Because that's getting out of it. But I think it's the whole party scene at the cons. I just kind of wonder, it seems like artists get into less trouble. And I think we may have talked about this before, Sean, but it's, if the artists are going back up to the hotel room to maybe get caught up on their commissions, they're saving themselves like 4 hours of drinking time, and that's probably why you see less of it.
Yeah. It's just, and I've said this before, but it's like you're on the East Coast and you go to San Diego, so you go from spending 12 hours a day at the drawing table talking to nobody, getting mad at Twitter, and then you get on a flight, so you're jet lagged. You're in San Diego, you're exhausted. You spend all day working. You probably skipped lunch. There's an Eisner show where you didn't win an award, of course, or someone you hate won an award. So there's this value judgment going on, and everyone, people are shoving microphones and cameras in front of you all day, asking you to talk about Batman. And you have zero media training, so you're just hoping not to get fired. And then everybody goes and gets trashed, and it's just countdown to drama. Like, this is the pressure cooker. Like, it's gonna happen. It's designed. It seems like it's designed for people to act like assholes and say dumb shit. And I've done it too. I'm not above it. I try to be careful now, but
I mean, it sounds like then the original art trade and commissions is the solution to all this. That we just get more of them.
Get back to work, artists. Don't start drinking until you're done your commission list.
We gotta. How do the writers get in on this? I got to write something.
What was it? Like Pete Tomasi will sell scripts at shows. He just prints them out, signs them.
Yeah, I have a friend who prints out one version of the script, signs it, and sells it. I don't know how well he does with them.
Yeah.
But
If they could maybe make original scripts where the characters all swear in ways they
there you go.
You know,
He was like Pete would take certain scripts. Like there was that like what was it that like near silent like issue in the New 52 run of Batman and Robin after Damian died in his run. Like he was like he'd take like scripts like that. And at the time, and he was selling those. I think Peter David also sold like key issue scripts and things like that. But it's not a game almost any writer can get in because
it's going to be very hard. I mean, maybe if you got Scotty Young to do some erotica in the
sure,
then that could maybe do it. But
well, all that extra time allows people to scour Twitter to be mad about things.
Yeah.
That's important. Part of part of being a pro is being angry.
It's important because how do I know if I could be collaborating with or talking to a monster?
Yeah.
I gotta get on there and see. I gotta share certain tweets and DMs and be like, hey, do you know this person? Because this seems a bit weird to me. And if I was trying to make more money, I wouldn't be able to do that.
That's true. Yeah, you'd just be making more money. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. From potentially the wrong people.
Sean, as an artist, and obviously you've established yourself extremely well as writer and artist. Do you think is there going to be a point where, I mean, you mentioned before that a good part of your income is based in this selling art and selling original art. Do you think that we see artists start pushing more to go away from digital because they need that money, or like, do you think this turns back at all?
Yeah, I would hope so. As a purist, as an old school guy, pencil inker, there's value, I think, in putting ink on page and letting happy accidents happen. You don't have Control Z all the time. You don't trace backgrounds or put up your perspective. Like all these shortcuts that digital artists use. They're amazing, but I do, just to be an art snob, I do miss the fact that they're not actually drawing on paper. And when they do have to draw on paper all of a sudden at a show, they're not good at it. Like I've seen an artist try to zoom in on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I've
seen. He grabbed it with 2 fingers. You ever like look at a map and try to move it with your finger?
Yes,
because you're used to seeing it on your phone. I've actually done that. That's what they're doing, is they're like trying to zoom in on their own drawing, and it's like, wow, this is
I've seen that. It is hysterical. I've seen some pretty big name artists do that, where they just
sober, by the way, right?
Yeah, totally sober.
Yeah. It feels like a bit of a trap, because I know it was sold to some of the artists as this will be quicker, this will be faster, maybe you get a little bit more money because you're penciling and inking, but then you take away all of that back end revenue, and you don't really realize that's happened. And now it's you hear more and more that the companies are trying to drive down the page rates. It's just it's like a race to the bottom.
Like, is a penciler inker team, I mean, we still have a few of them around, but that's not an idea that's promoted. Like, can you just have a career as an inker right now? I mean, starting out, I don't know.
There aren't a lot of inkers. I think like was it Mark Morellas? I think still does a lot of inking at Marvel.
Yep.
But there aren't like a lot of inkers.
You got Tim Townsend, who, him with Ramon. Fuck, I'm so bad with names now. Anyway, there's a handful left, and they've tied themselves to the wagon of another artist. Like, Jim Lee always works with Scott Williams. So Scott's not going anywhere. Like, he'll ink Jim to his grave. But I don't see any new teams being created. When I started inking myself, it was only because I wanted to make more money in comics. Like in college, when I went to school in 2000, I thought comics was a real lucrative business, because I remember stories of Rob Liefeld making a ton of money on Youngblood. And when I graduated in 2003, people were like, oh no, you didn't hear? Like, there was a massive collapse, and comics you're not actually making a lot of money anymore. And I don't know how I missed it. I think I was so busy drawing, I just stopped reading and collecting and paying attention. But I got so scared, like, well, fuck, how am I going to make the money I want to make? So I'm like, well, I'm just going to ink myself, and I'll just try to find a way to be really fast to get double the rates. But as you just said, Perch, I mean, with digital, I mean, you hire an artist to pencil, ink, and color his own work for a penciler rate now, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, and then nothing you get to keep, nothing you get to sell. Your hope is that you can kind of make it up in maybe commissions when you're at the con circuit. But now we've had a year of no cons.
Yeah,
we're in for at least another 6 months. I mean, it feels like that's created a very bad situation. And then on top of that, if people are going through a dealer or a rep with the art that they do have, or maybe they do not have any technical skills, so they have no way to really reach people online. I mean, I know there's some artists who make deals via Twitter DM, but that's like the least efficient possible way to do any of that.
Yeah, or they have a GeoCities site from the 90s that you can go to.
Yeah, there are a couple that are out there. Yeah. But so it feels like a lot of money being left on the table, but also the table is rapidly shrinking.
Yeah, I don't know. I would hope that some of these big artists would do some originals just to sell your marquee pages. I think Fiona used to do that. I don't know if she does anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Artists get stuck in these systems, these habits, and they don't ever seem to stop themselves and think about what it means in the future. Like I knew an artist who said, "Oh, I like to be digital because it's faster and I can produce twice as much." And I was like, "Okay, but I couldn't afford to be digital right now because I rely on my original art sales." And he said, "Well, I never really sold a lot of original art." And in my mind, I'm thinking that's because your stuff's pretty generic, but I didn't say that.
Sure.
I feel like if you want to sell a lot of art, you need to be on the right book that spotlights you correctly. You need to have, it helps to have a unique style that no one else can do, but it's like, it's so hard to get there. I mean, if you're looking for stability in comics, you're almost better off just being a house style, just for the sake of reliability, honestly, you know? I mean, being like Paul Pope is awesome, but it's a big bet to try to make yourself the next Paul Pope and think it's going to work out. Like there's only a handful of artists like Daniel Warren Johnson, Paul Pope, me, and a few others that I can think of who can sort of have all those three things. You know, most people just don't have that luxury.
Yeah. You know, it feels like if you're new, it's going to be harder to break in. So you're putting some obstacles in front of you if you're doing that. So that's going to make it very, very difficult. Yeah.
You know, the thing that I've wrestled with this a lot, and it's to sort of widen the argument here, widen the discussion. When I hear stories of artists not making money, part of me feels really bad. Overworked, not trained in business, people taking advantage of them, all these big movies making millions and they're making shit. That does, my artist side does empathize with that. But the other half of me is like, well, didn't you know that getting into this? Didn't you know that this is like a niche industry? When you decided to just, go digital, didn't you think of what that would do to your income? You didn't read your contract. You didn't have a plan. Like, I'm sorry, but the capitalist in me sort of starts to get fed up when I see artists making excuses for why they're complaining and not doing anything to fix it. Like I thought the deal was when we all got into this, it was high risk, low pay. And that's just the nature of it. Like if you want to be a mime, if you love miming, awesome. But that there's not a lot of money in that, But the fucking difference is you don't hear mimes complain about it.
Well, you don't hear mimes complain about anything, but
way to go, guys.
On top of that, I think that's why Jim Lee went from being a mime to a comic artist.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing because I think it's very easy to get yourself in the trap, and it's awareness of your situation where you should. You get very tunnel vision where you don't realize the trap you've put yourself in.
Yeah.
And I think to many people, and I've talked to, this is more writers than I notice than artists, but you can talk to people. It's like, well, my most important part of my day is networking through Twitter and then doing my work. And then, trying to hustle for some other work with this editor I know through Twitter.
Right.
And it's like, that's their life. That's what they've convinced themselves. The only way to get forward in this business is to do that. But the time suck, which you and I have talked about before, the time suck of Twitter is can be half your day or more.
Yeah.
And so it's all this stuff just keeps you pinned down, but you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, and then especially after the last year or so, I know a lot of people, you put a lot into networking on Twitter or via email or stuff like that, and those editors are gone now.
Yeah,
and that's 2 years, 3 years sometimes. That just gone.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, a lot of another critique I have of a lot of artists is that they're natural for them to want to sit around and wait for someone to offer them something. They feel like, I went to college, I have these skills, people see my stuff, I have a website. Now it's their job to come to me and offer me a gig.
Right.
And I tried that when I was younger, and I had gaps where I had no money coming in, and I had to make books for myself. And I said, well, I'm going to write off-road. I managed a book called Outer Orbit for Dark Horse back in the day. I actually wrote 2 issues of that and didn't get credit for it, which is fine. But I didn't see myself as a writer. I thought of myself as a project manager. So I would meet a writer and go, all right, I want to draw Terminator. Can you write me a Terminator script or something like that? And then maybe we'll split the different, like, there's got to be ways to help manage your own career. But a lot of artists are not even thinking that way. And they can look at successful Kickstarters in the face, and they still won't. They'd still rather spend time networking on Twitter than spending those 2 hours a day putting together a campaign that's actually going to make them more money.
Yeah.
You know, and at some point, like I just can't help people that don't want to help themselves.
It's tough when you see somebody so in the trap that they don't realize they're in the trap. They don't want to hear anything about how to get out of that trap. And it's all about kind of reinforcing these, in some cases, decisions they've made that are keeping them down. I mean, it's stuff. I love the project manager analogy, because I think in comics, in many ways, that would be a really good role for people to have. Like,
Yes.
We need that. That's in theory an editor, but maybe not, at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, if I was an editor who got fired, I would hire an assistant and just try to specialize in crowdfunding. And I'd say to artists, you don't want to write, fine. Tell me the kind of story that you would like to draw, and let me try to find a writer for you. And then we will put together a project. We will kickstart it. We'll figure out a system, a pipeline where we'll offer, prints and sketches and interviews, whatever. Like, in different tiers, because you're a C-level artist or C-level writer, you can't get as much, of course. But I mean, seeing how little people are making at the big two these days, you're not making that much less doing a Kickstarter that barely squeaks by in some cases. And you own the IP, you know? And you can sell NFTs of it. And they're your characters and this and that. But no one's really, actually, no, there are a few people that are starting to do this, but there's no one big that's really made a mark yet.
Yeah. It feels like it has to come soon, though.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I have friends he was complaining, and he's got a great style. And I'm like, man, you got a unique style, but if you keep doing these short-term gigs for Marvel, you're never going to get spotlight like you want. Like, you need like a classic manga type story. That's what you need. And I think you'll blow up. I'm telling him, like, think of 3 stories that you would like to draw, and find writer friends of yours who would be interested in writing them for you, and get it started. So be your own project manager. And no, I'm just going to be on Twitter for 3 hours a day, and hopefully this networking will pay back dividends at some point.
Yeah, that's a huge mistake. And it's funny. I've heard so many artists who have ideas. It's exactly that. They know what they want to draw. They have a style of something they want to do. They don't want to write the story, or they don't know how to write the story, and they kind of wish a writer would come along. Yeah. Like, you've got a decent name. You've got a great style. Yeah. If you just kind of push this out there, you would have dozens of people falling over themselves to write that story for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You don't need to be an A-level skill set. If you can be a C-level or B-level skill set, but have a A-level marketing plan or an A-level idea, or like, there's other ways to survive. There's tons of people who exist just fine on crowdfunding who aren't that good at what they do, but they've got stick-to-itiveness. They work their asses off, and they're doing better than a lot of people in comics, whether or not their stuff's getting nominated for awards.
And some of the biggest books in the industry, like the big two, just because they're the biggest books doesn't mean that the single greatest artist and single greatest writer in the industry is working on them.
Right.
Like, that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
What would kind of take it back to art for a second? So if you were kind of advising somebody who is interested in collecting art or getting into art or wanting, as a customer, how would you Sean, tell them, and Joe, how would you tell them to begin?
Joe, you go first.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. What was that again? Just give me that again.
No, just if somebody's like, you've collected smart, somebody is saying, I have an interest here. How do I start? Where do I go with this?
Kind of looping back to what I was saying earlier was stick with contemporaries. Stick with like if you like something coming out now, look into that, because a lot of times that's also going to be closer to what you can reasonably get, because you can't. It becomes a much more complicated game when you start looking at stuff that's 20, 30, 40 years old, because that art could have changed hands so many times. Depending on how old it is, it might literally just not exist because they used to destroy the art. So sticking to contemporaries, looking at like going on social media or checking websites, actually seeing who is offering commissions or is selling pages, go that route. If you're just starting, don't start finding artists and DMing or trying to find ways to reach them to be like, is there a page? Stick to it that way. Definitely commissions at cons, going that way. Seeing if someone posts like, oh, I'm going to have a commission list. So check on Monday. I'm going to open it, and the first 20 people to respond, I'll put on the list. There's a lot of artists that do that. That kind of stuff. Looking at cons. And it also depends on who you want to give that money to. Do you want to pay? Does it mean something to you to support that particular artist, or do you only want the page? If you only want the page or only want art from someone and you don't care if you're supporting them directly or not, you could go on eBay and see what pages are available there. Maybe you just want, or, sometimes the artist is already passed. Maybe you want a Kurt Swan page. Doesn't really matter. You can't give Kurt Swan money. You go on eBay and see what's there. But if you want to support the artists, like getting commissions is always great. Also, something I like to do, I just started doing this. I got my first cover recreation commission.
Those are interesting.
I love those, especially like old Silver Age, like ridiculous covers.
Explain very quickly. So what is that to people?
So like a cover recreation, and artists will usually mention if that is something they do. They will have a certain fee where they will do, it's usually like an 11 by 17 recreation of a cover. So they will like try to mimic the style of a particular cover. They'll sign it their name and say like, this is, inspired by, or, a homage to Rob Brown or Neil Adams or whoever it is.
Right.
And, that way, that's a way, if you want to have an original piece, but let's say you really want that kind of stuff. Like you are almost like, anyone listening to this is probably never going to get to own Amazing Spider-Man 300, the cover. You're probably never going to get to own that.
Probably not. Yeah.
But
I don't know. My clientele, no, probably not.
But you might be able to get someone like an artist that does cover recreations to give you something like that. Or you could run the gamut. I mean, the X-Men #1 is a common cover recreation. Things like that, Amazing Fantasy 15, and you can get an artist to do that for you. And those, depending on the artist, you could be spending anywhere from $300-400 to $2,000, So.
Yeah. The one caveat to that, and I love that idea, by the way, I'm curious if anyone's ever done a recreation of an interior page.
Yeah.
If there was like an amazing sequence that has been done. That sounds. But the one thing with that though is,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the commission stuff though, usually you don't get your money back when you get a commission. Like generally you get it because you like it. If you get something more generic like Batman on a gargoyle, and you get to buy a big Batman artist, then okay, maybe you'll sell that for a profit later on. But commissions, mostly you do it just because you love it. I agree with everything you said, Joe. Sure. One thing people forget about is auctions. Online auctions like Comic Link is one around here. They don't allow you to use bots to snipe people the last minute, so you actually have to stay awake and click yourself. And my friend ended up getting like a Jim Lee page for like $500, which if that was on a site with a dealer and it was featured, that would have been at least quadruple that price.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of these auction places still have their featured pieces, which immediately jacks the price up. But then there's a ton of great stuff that's from the 80s and 90s that's just not as marquee as you think. But if you just do a little bit of research, my friend got another like a Deadpool page by Jason Pearson, one of my favorite artists, for like $150, and he could flip that the next day for 500, easy.
Sure.
That's kind of like the one thing people forget about. Well, I'm sorry, Perch. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. You just there's definitely interior pages that have been recreated. The Secret Wars double page spread where the heroes are all kind of assembled in one room is one that I know.
Oh yeah,
a number of artists have been asked to do. But what about when the artist you asked to do the cover recreation proceeds to, and I know this has happened a few times, pretty much trace the cover, and then you get a trace of the cover. Like this has happened a few times. I've always suspected the artist was kind of being a dick and did that on purpose, but.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that artist isn't looking out for his customers. The guy would try to be, if I do I'll sell a cover for like $5 to $15,000 sometimes. If I have someone asking me for a custom cover, it's in my interest to make sure that I'm not fucking them over.
Yeah.
I want their $15,000. I'd like them to keep coming back to me, of course. So I'll send them emails and prelims and ask questions just to make sure. I'll save everything too, just so I can, in case I need to refer back to it or whatever. Like, again, everyone walks away happy. But if artists are just tracing and they don't give a shit, then usually, I mean, on comic art fans or whatever, there's forums, and I don't search them that much, but it seems to be a pretty fun, positive community because everyone's just about the love of art. But I would imagine that it's easy to find which artists to avoid pretty easily. Maybe not through that network, but some other one like, oh, so-and-so artist is known for being lazy or not giving, he's taking money or, doing it half-assed. So stay away from him. I feel like there's probably the word is out on some artists who are screwing over customers in one way or another.
Do you think so that was going to be my next question. It catches up pretty quick, doesn't it? I mean, you can't go on doing this for very long.
Yeah, no, you got to have some kind of, the more of a, history you have of people coming back to you. And then, I guess that's the risk with getting new art from contemporary people is if they're young and upcoming, you hope they're going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
But if you're not paying a lot for it, and that's kind of the charm, is you're getting kind of a bargain for an up and comer, then part of the risk is he might not do a good job, or maybe he will, and one day he'll blow up and be the next Paul Pope, and then that piece will be worth a lot more, or whatever. That's kind of the fun of it, of investing and following it. It's
Now what about? Because I'd speculated on this a while back, and this is definitely into paranoia territory. I want to update. But as there have been plenty of lawsuits from Disney when they found out that like a daycare painted Mickey Mouse on the side of the wall, and yet artists go to conventions, they draw commission. So an artist can draw Spider-Man and sell it and keep all the money, and it's their own little game. It feels like there's a ticking time bomb waiting for a Disney or somebody to say, hey, that is our IP you're drawing here. Do you think there comes a day where that happens, and what would be the reaction?
Yeah. As a lawyer, if I was a lawyer, I'd say I totally get that these companies have to do due diligence, especially with NFTs. It brought a lot of these uncomfortable questions that they would rather not answer.
Sure.
Now they have to be answered. As an artist or someone who, I see this industry as a family, and I see Wolverine as a friend in a way. Not being able to draw a Wolverine sketch and sell it just feels like that's not what I signed up for when I got into comics. I thought that we were sort of allowed to sell one-off commissions at least. Selling massive amounts of prints of Wolverine, that's different. Selling T-shirts of Wolverine from your website, of course. But one-off commissions was always expected to be like a nice little bonus, and that's the only way that artists are able to go to shows.
Yeah.
I wrote DC a letter. What was it called? A mission statement, whatever. But I wrote to them, and I was like, I get the NFT stuff, and they know me really well, and they know that I'm very practical and not very artsy fartsy. Like they know I'm very grounded. And I said, you need us to go to shows. you need us to go there to do interviews, to create content, media, sound bites. You need us there. Think of all the deals that get done. And, Scott Snyder got Jock on Batman Dark Mirror because he got him drunk at a bar in San Diego. Like, if that interaction hadn't happened, you wouldn't be making money off that book. Like, there's benefit to getting us all together. If artists can't go because they can't pay their own way, then you missing out a lot too. And in their defense, DC Comics, I don't think the people in the office want to crack down at all. I think it's just that the lawyers know that this is coming, and the corporate overlords above them are seeing. Right. So that's what's, the average Joe in the office doesn't care. So I don't want to vilify the companies too much, because it's not coming from them. It's coming from their parent companies.
Yeah. No, and for everybody's like, I can't believe a big corporation would try and manage this kind of stuff. I refer you to our earlier conversation where we were talking about the Hulk and the thing in the locker room with a penis. And
not a stony penis, a real penis flesh.
If you're a Disney IP lawyer, you might look at that and think,
yeah,
maybe I don't want that floating around out there.
Yeah.
Swinging around, whatever it might be.
Well, so I haven't looked at my contract for a while, but I thought that it said that I keep the art and I get to do what I want with it, but it might not. Do companies legally own the artwork that I draw for them? Like, if I'm not trying to fearmonger at all, but it would be very easy we'll just talk about Marvel because I don't work for them. It'd be very easy for Marvel to say, well, we're going to fix this NFT problem right now. We're only going to pay artists who are digital, because then we don't have to worry about them doing commissions and all that stuff. We're just gonna if you draw traditionally, you will not get your paycheck unless you mail us the original art. Period.
Yeah,
they could do that, fix some of this problem overnight if they wanted to be dicks about it. I don't know if that day is coming. Honestly, I still feel like the original art market is fine the way it has been for a long time. But the NFT thing really does ask uncomfortable questions. Like, why am I allowed to sell a page of Batman White Knight, but I'm not allowed to sell a digital copy NFT of that same page of White Knight? Yeah. And they don't have an answer for that. And they know it. And I think legally, if I decided to start selling these things and it went to court, I don't think DC would win. I mean, they have, 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the problem. There's a lot of precedent here, but it'll be interesting to see how it all tracks. Sean, I know, Joe, we're kind of at the end of our time, but any kind of last thoughts about art? I mean, my big thing would be, I just hope people pursue it. There's a world out there. If you love comic art, there's a lot you can do, and you just have to keep digging.
Yeah. So the thing that I've been doing lately is I'll divide my art into 4 tiers. My system is like, I've got the schlocky low end Batman art, which I'll sell at the lowest price. I don't think it's going to be worth a lot. It's not a splashy Batman. I've got tier 2, which is something that goes for mid-range prices. It's not going to be a retirement piece. It's not a cover, but it's something that I should be getting more money out of that. I'll price that 5 to 10% higher than my tier 1. So I'm looking to get a price from 2 years from now, rather than 2 years from now, is kind of my thinking. And all of this is adjustable, of course. Tier 3 art is, if I'm going to sell this really nice page now, I kind of want the price I'm going to get 2 years from now to 5 years from now. Like, I want to make sure that I'm not selling something that's going to go up in value in a year. Like, I want to get some of the later money right now. And then I'll have tier 4, which is retirement pieces. And these I'm not selling at all. If somebody really wants the cover to, White Knight #1, I'm going to look to get 50 to 100,000 out of it, because I'm betting on myself to command Frank Miller prices one day. Or if there's like a White Knight movie or White Knight series of some kind, then I would sell it. But I hate to gut somebody, because I know that cover is not worth that now, but I need the price that I would be getting in 20 years is my thinking. But the other part of all of that is like, is it better for me to sell it now and invest that money in stocks and real estate, whatever? If I can grow at 12% every year, then just sell it now. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is just my theory, but I've never heard anyone else. No artist usually categorizes their art this way, but this is kind of the system that my friend and I came up with, and it seems to be working.
Nice. Yeah.
I hope more will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, Sean, thank you for a wonderful conversation. I think we're going to get back on here again soon. Talk City of Blues or some
Awesome.
plan.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.